Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today, we're talking about Mahler's Third Symphony, which hasn't appeared yet in this series, I don't believe. It appeared in reference recordings, of course, where the reference recording was Leonard Bernstein and the New York Philharmonic on Sony. Wow, that is still an amazing performance. Fabulous. And of course, he did it twice, and they were both wonderful performances. And I saw the second one live, and oh my goodness, what fun that was. Anyway, let's talk, though, about the version that I want to mention, one that probably won't occur to most of you instantaneously. It's Eliahu Inbal with the Frankfurt Radio Symphony Orchestra on Denon. Now, the Inbal Mahler cycle has appeared in various formats. Originally, it was released on single discs on Denon. Then it was boxed up, and here's the latest boxed up version. But it was licensed prior to that on Brilliant Classics, and here is that version. There was always an issue with this cycle, which was that in the first symphony, in the finale, the second timpani part was missing, and it was just a weird thing that happened, but they fixed it. Somehow they fixed it. Some of you have mentioned the fact that they fixed it, or at least that you didn't notice it because they had fixed it by the time you noticed the performance. So all is well. I don't know what they did or what was going on there, but there was a thingy, and they dealt with the thingy. And I'm very happy that they dealt with the thingy, because otherwise it would have been a blot on what is otherwise an extraordinarily fine cycle. Inbal also did another Mahler cycle in Japan, which is available at very, very high prices on individual discs, as far as I know. But here's the bottom line. Mahler people still exist. In other words, there are certain conductors who really get what, Mahler is supposed to sound like and what he's trying to do. And they convey that in their performances. Then there are the Mahler people who play Mahler like any other composer you run into at your standard subscription concert. And they can do these symphonies extremely well. They can. They could be beautifully played. They can be, really wonderful. But there's a difference. There's a difference because the true Mahler people, like Bernstein was, and Inbal, for example, they understand that Mahler's world includes the trashy, the vulgar, the screechy, the ugly, the strange and spooky. And they relish those moments. Not to say that they exaggerate them, but they relish them. Michael Gielan was one of those types, and probably the best of the not, Mahlerish Mahler people was Gary Bertini, who made what is arguably the most consistent and finest Mahler cycle yet released. It's really, really good, but it doesn't emphasize, except for the cowbells in the sixth, which are amazing, but it doesn't emphasize all those weird Mahlerian moments that we tend to think about. These are subtleties, you understand? I'm not talking about, and I'm making gross generalizations, let's put it that way. But Inbal is a real Mahler guy. He gets the sound, and he makes the orchestra do it. And the Frankfurt Radio Symphony was nobody's idea of a great Mahler orchestra, and Denon sonics were very clear. They were clear and vivid, but also a little bit, there was that auditorium that they recorded in was like a huge acoustic, and they were difficult to capture. So there was a little bit of, you have to turn them up, let's put it that way, to get the best of it. But then it sounds marvelous. So when it came to the Third Symphony, certain Mahler symphonies offer tests of whether you're a real Mahler guy or a normal concert conductor, general person who happens to do Mahler. And the third is one of the great tests because it's just chock full of all of these weird Mahler things, the big trombone solo in the first movement, the writing for solo percussion ensemble, the crazy animal noises in the third movement, the bim bom business, which is a wonderful example of religious kitsch. I mean, people think it's charming and delightful, and it is charming and delightful, but it has that very sinister central thing and central interlude. And, the whole point of Mahler bringing up this lovely vision of conventional religion is so that he can surpass it in the finale, where you have to really wring all of the emotion out of the music, especially in the minor key second theme and the big climaxes that recall the first movement. I mean, there's so much here. The screaming piccolos in the march music in the first movement. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on with all these special moments that conductors who really know their Mahler will do very, very well, and conductors who don't respond to that aspect of Mahler's musical personality will tend to minimize or diminish. One of the great minimizers was Claudio Abbado. His Mahler thirds were always underplayed and undercharacterized, except for like strange details that he would, like the trombone sort of portamenti that he would exaggerate just like to prove that he could. There are a million different ways of playing the music, of course, and it's such a big symphony. It's the longest symphony in the repertoire that gets played regularly, an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, when Lauren Mazel does it, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. So, it's a long symphony with lots of things that you can do and lots of things that you can miss. And Eliahu Inbal hardly misses a trick. I mean, this is third. When I was listening to this cycle, I remember originally thinking, some of them I liked more than others. They were all very good. But when we got to the third, I was able to say, yeah, here's a guy who really gets the idiom. I mean, the first movement is ballsy and healthily vulgar, and the conclusion is a big, huge Hollywood-esque eruption, and the flower movement is lovely and dainty and stylized and perfumed. And the third movement has that, there's a point where Mahler marks the music grob, which means crude. It's got to have that da-da-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum with the horns and the basses are going. It's got to be rough, and Eliahu roughs it up. He really does. He knows what he's about. And so, you've got the O Mensch thing. Oh, who's the soloist in this? She's very good. Wait a minute. Let me just see if I can find it. I don't know which set to open here. Maybe this one will be a little quicker. No, here's number 3. There it is. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Doris Soffel was never my favorite alto, but she sings quite well. And everybody else is on top, the choruses and various things. And he does a really beautiful final adagio. He really does, especially at the last big climax. When they had the cymbal crash under a mezzo forte bass drum roll that should just feel like a pressure wave. It's like rumbling underneath the big brass chorale. I mean, it's just beautifully done. It really is. It's very well recorded. And I got to tell you, I mean, for a symphony that does not give up its secrets easily, or at least challenges conductors to really confront what makes Mahler Mahler, Inbal has no fear. And that's what we want, fearless conducting. That's what makes this performance one of the greatest recordings ever. So, there's a nice opportunity to mention a Mahler cycle that, because it was issued on Denon, which never did much promotion outside of Japan and doesn't, always had a spotty presence in the international market. I mean, it's really good to be able to recognize a series of performances, and this performance particularly, that do not deserve to be neglected, because they really are as good as it gets. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.